Hi, how are you? Listen, thank you very much for meeting with me today. I understand that you're probably still quite shaken up from what happened last night. Now, it's not every day that someone actually witnesses a bank robbery, and I want you to know that you've been very brave. Okay, you've been very brave. Now, no, I'm not actually anything to do with the official government response to something like this. I work for an organisation that deals with the supernatural. Yes, I understand. No, I am being serious. I think if you actually stop and think about what you saw last night, you might find that that's not so far-fetched, is it? No. I want you to understand that you're not going mad. What you saw last night was real. It was not a trick or an illusion. And you're safe now. It's okay. You've been very brave. But what you saw was real. The organisation I work for is involved in investigating matters of the supernatural and magic. And by magic I do mean real magic. It's quite rare that this kind of thing actually does spill over into the street, as it were, and into public view, but on occasion it does. And when it does, well, we step in. I have been investigating cases like this for years, and I want you to know that you really are safe now. This is not going to happen to you again. Fortunately, we know that they had nothing, no interest in you. You just happened to be working at the bank. Now, I just have a few questions for you, okay? You mentioned that the lights went out completely. Was that complete darkness? Okay, so you couldn't see anything really. And you mentioned that one of the security guards went to check the fuse box. And when he came back, he said there was nothing wrong with it. Okay. And you mentioned that the lights then came back on, and there were some small individuals standing around in black cloaks. Is that right? Now, how small were these individuals? They were around about 3 feet. Okay. And so, would you say that these individuals were human? They didn't seem to be. Okay. And they were making some snarling noises. I see. How many of them were there? Around about 10. Okay. This is going to sound a bit strange. But we think that those were goblins. Yes, I know. I know this all sounds ridiculous, but as I say, I think your reality, or your perception of reality, has probably changed quite dramatically since last night. Would that be fair to say? The things you've seen in your life, the things you know about, they are only a tiny fraction of what is true, of what is real, of what exists. Imagine if you had never seen an elephant before, and someone found one. But they didn't have any pictures, and all they had was a description. And they described this animal to you as being as big as a minibus, with a long grey nose, multiple feet in length, like a huge hose, and huge round flappy ears, with big thick legs like tree trunks, and a little tail out the back of it. You probably wouldn't believe that person. You'd probably think that they were lying to you or joking, because the description would sound quite different from anything that you'd ever seen or heard of. But we know that elephants exist. You see, it's your perception of these things. Your reality, your worldview is based on different things you've experienced, but it's not about whether things are too far-fetched. It's about, what are you comfortable with? What have you seen? What evidence have you seen that allows you to accept these things to be true? You don't believe in goblins because you've never seen goblins. They have been presented to you as mere fiction. But the same could have been true for the elephant. Having met many goblins in my time, I can assure you they are real. Unfortunately, though, they're not very nice, and that's not being general. Goblins are dark creatures. But they were not there alone, were they? You then mention that a large man, tall, about 6'5" in height, came into the main room, the main reception room of the bank. And the goblins moved out of the way for him, and he also had a black cloak on. Did you happen to see his face at all? Okay. You couldn't see his face, but he was holding what you described as a staff. Is that right? Okay. Let's see. Does the name Panagio, Mr. Panagio, does that ring any bells? You heard one of the goblins say that name, talking to this man. Ah, okay, that is very helpful information, thank you. I'm not sure if I should be telling you this, but you've been through so much. Mr. Panagio is a very powerful dark wizard. We've been tracking him for years. He's incredibly elusive, and unfortunately he has a taste for diamonds and money, and he likes to steal it. But on this occasion he was after something else. Do you have any information about other things that were stored in the bank? No. As far as you're concerned, it was just money and diamonds and bonds and... okay. There is a very powerful crystal which is... it's something which is neither good nor evil, but it can be used for good or evil depending on what the user wishes to use it for. And well, as you can imagine, Mr. Panagio, he doesn't have the best intentions for this crystal. This crystal was stored in the bank, and unfortunately it is now missing, and we believe that Mr. Panagio was actually successful in removing this crystal. But that's nothing to do with you or any of the other members of staff. I didn't expect that you would know that it was there. Now, You mentioned that there was a flash of light and that two men came in white cloaks. Is that right? You couldn't see their faces though. Okay. You also mentioned that these men were then tangled up very quickly around their legs by some kind of vine or plant. Is that right? And do you have any idea where this came from, this vine? It just seemed to appear from the ground. Okay. I think what happened there was there are other forces, forces of goodness, which I'm sure you're pleased to hear about. And these forces, they are a bit like vigilantes. They don't work for us or with us, but they fight darkness. They follow their own rules, and we don't exactly approve of them. Not because they're not good, they are good, but, you know, we have an organization, we follow rules. And, you know, it can make us a little bit nervous when people go out on their own tackling these sort of dark forces. So, it's difficult. They've helped us in the past, we've helped them. But the communication lines are not great, if you know what I mean. What happened to the men after that? The men in the white cloaks, what happened to them? Okay, so they had some wands and they cast a spell and they got this plant, this vine, away from them. And then they chased Mr. Panagio into the room, into another room. Okay, and then you didn't see what happened in there, but there was flashing lights and lots of noise and bangs. Okay, and then Mr. Panagio came out on his own. I see. No, we didn't find anyone in there. Again, this is going to sound a bit strange, but one of the things Mr. Panagio does is he can send people through portals to different areas. He wouldn't have been powerful enough to destroy those men, so don't worry, but he may have knocked them unconscious and then sent them to a different part of the planet. They'll be okay. He doesn't have the power to destroy them, but he's just got them out of the way. So don't worry about them. You can imagine Mr. Panagio is very powerful, but he's not strong enough to destroy two white wizards. You mentioned something rather odd. Now I know this is all odd, but you said that a line of ducks walked into the bank before all this happened. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? I see. And the ducks, they just walked right through. The security guards ran over and tried to pick them up in incredible confusion. Yes, I should imagine they were confused. Yes. And then you said the ducks just vanished in their hands. Ah, I see. Okay, so what I think has happened there is these ducks were used as a distraction. This sounds rather silly, I know, but you'd be amazed at how effective it is. Imagine a line of ducks, well, you don't need to, you saw it, walking into a bank. Everyone looks at the ducks. Everyone is confused, bewildered, what on earth is going on. And people of authority will try and pick the ducks up. If they don't pick them up, people will think, well, what are you doing? You're just going to let ducks walk around a bank. So, this is a great way to distract the security, and it works. I should imagine that whilst the security were trying to pick up those ducks, something else was going on in the background that none of you were looking for or looking at. Everyone would have been looking at the ducks. This is an old trick. It's not always used with ducks, but and that the ducks vanish. They're just a spell. So okay, so then you mention that Mr. Panagio went into the back rooms. There was a loud bang. You believe at this point he got into some of the vaults, and then he flew out of the window. And which window was that? The skylight. So he flew up and out of the skylight. Did he smash the skylight? Because it was fine when we saw. Hey, he just went through it. Well, okay. And what about the goblins? The goblins just vanished, with their cloaks left on the floor. So they just disappeared. Okay. Well, we'll be having a look at those cloaks. I'm not sure if we'll find anything. Okay. I think that's everything. Now listen, I want you to know, you're safe now. Okay? You're safe. They weren't interested in you at all. And what you've seen, is obviously going to change the way you see the world. But don't worry. There's good forces out there watching and protecting. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate your cooperation on this. And I mean this with the best possible meaning. Hopefully, you'll never see me again.